So let's go to the first module then. And this is Module A, Experience Through Language. You have two electives. One is called Distinctively Visual. So we're going to have a look at that first. Distinctively visual means you are going to be considering what is unique about the visuals that you actually look at. So it's the ways the images we see and or visualize in text are created. So let's look at that. The images we actually see or the images we actually visualize. So if you're watching a film, it's the images you're seeing, but then they might provoke other images in your imagination. If you're reading a text, through the language that's used, like a novel or a poem, you visualize certain things because of the language. So it's how the forms, features and language of different texts create these images. How they affect, and affect very much this verb is about your emotions, interpretation and shape meaning. So when you see a particular image, how do you immediately feel when you see it? What ideas are provoked by it as a result? How texts evoke images that we see and imagine. So what are the key questions then? When you read a poem, or you watch a film, or you read a novel or a short story, what do you see? How do you feel? Why do you see it? What is the composer doing? Why is the image now distinctive? What is unique about that image? Why has the image been included in the first place? And then, interestingly enough, what are the gaps and silences in a text? In other words, what has been omitted and why? What perspective is evident? Whose voice is being heard and privileged through the image? And consequently, what are the key ideas? So what does distinctively mean? A mark of difference or uniqueness about a text. So this is where it's really important to choose related texts that actually are different to the text you're studying as you're prescribed, because you can talk about something that's very, very unique or different in both texts. They're images that demand our attention and convey a perspective or an idea. They're striking images or that striking metaphor or personification that's used. The real or imagined, as we said earlier. They can be created through actual images or imagery. So you've got all types of imagery. You've got olfactory, the smell. You've got visceral imagery is sight. You've got auditory, sound, or gustatory, taste and food, and that notion that we associate around that. Then, of course, you've got visual texts themselves. So this is not just the language, this is film, for example, picture books, photographs, advertisements. So first of all, look at mise en scene. Mise en scene, what's in the frame? What's deliberately been placed in that frame and why? Then look at the framing and composition. Look at the colour, the hue, the vectors, what do the lines take you? The body language, if there are people in it. Included in body language will be proxemics, where are people placed within an image and why, in relationship to each other. Look at the lighting. For example, you could have this amazing interplay, which is called tenebrism, which is scuro lighting of light and dark, or shadows and light. And why? What do the shadows suggest? The symbolism, the shots and angles. Is it a close-up, an extreme close-up? What's the angle, the high angle, low angle, canting, which is tilted? The rule of thirds. We look at what's empowered and disempowered depending on where it's placed, or is that subverted? In terms of the written or spoken text, the figurative language, such as metaphors, simile, and the list goes on for those. The narrative voice or the persona and what images convey through their voice. The imagery again, the language choices, such as the imperative voice or repetition. What images build up in your head, for example, when there is repetition occurring? The structure and punctuation when you look at a poem. If it's structured in a certain way, it might actually make you see images in a certain way. And of course the tone. You know, what's the mood being constructed inside you by the tone and the words that are used? And then ask yourself, what is the purpose of an image then? Usually if it's distinctive, it grabs our attention. Why? It'll provoke thought. Why? It'll inform us. How? It's to convey a perspective or a point of view. Or it could be, as well as, convey the key ideas, and it can convey relationships. So remember, you're going to identify the image and ask, where is it coming from? Where's the composer coming from? And you're going to say, what is the purpose of it? And the meaning.